Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Crossing Borders. Of course, this is Mike Ginn. That's Alex Soto. You know him well. He's been around the world fighting seemingly forever now. We're on episode number 3 of Crossing Borders. We do apologize. We did miss a week. Sometimes things happen. Alex is always traveling, always doing work, always doing business. So we try to get him when we can. But we do have a lot to talk about. Before we get to all that, Alex, did you hear the news? There's something new at Fighters First. You didn't know? There's a new collection.
No.
Yeah, I think your face is on it too.
What? You got to tell me about this. What's happening, Mike?
Well, for the people at home that might not be paying attention, there's a brand new Extremo collection at Fighters First featuring Alex Soto, of course. Make sure you guys check it out. Support the show. Support Alex. He's been doing this a long time. Of course, fighting in UFC, fighting in Bellator. We've talked about Brave. He has his own fighting federation with Versus, doing the Muay Thai and doing the MMA out in San Diego. So check out all Alex is doing. Of course, you see him on UFC Fight Pass with Lux. So check it all out. Extremo Fight Collection in the shop now. And, of course, if you look below, Crossing Borders shirt sitting right there with it. So check all that out if you get some time. Support the show. Support the brand. FightersFirst.shop. But, Alex, that's the business side of things. We do want people to go support you, obviously, and support the shop. But we do got some stuff to talk about this week. This week, we're going to do a little bit of profile, and we're going to talk about Daniel Zellhuber. Got that big win, Dana White's Contender Series. He's going to be one of the next great Mexican fighters. Super young. I think he's only like 22 years old. We'll talk about him. We're going to do a little bit of a fighter profile, talking about another potential up-and-coming fighter with Christian Quiñonez, better known as the problem child, El Nino Problema. And then it's never a show without Alex's story time. So we didn't get a story time last episode. We're going to get one this time. So we're just going to jump straight into this. Dana White's Contender Series, not this last episode, but the episode before that on the 28th. 2 undefeated fighters, Daniel Zellhuber, Lucas Almeida. They had a really great fight. Like the first round, Lucas Almeida rocked Zellhuber. Zellhuber even himself said he kind of went black. He didn't even remember much of the first round. And then the second and third round, he started throwing those question mark kicks. He landed one, and that kind of changed the whole tone of the fight. He had some takedowns, controlled a little bit of that. The kid looks 100% the part. What are your thoughts on Zellhuber? What are your thoughts on that fight?
Well, I thought in that fight, he had kind of a little bit of a slow start in that first round, man. It was kind of scary at first because at least I'm not used to seeing him kind of struggle like that coming off the bat, man. I think he might have been a little bit intimidated by, fighting in front of Dana White, on the big show, and really this is his opportunity now. And on top of that, he's fighting, Lucas Almeida, who's like a gnarly fighter, man. I didn't know much about him going into this one, and both undefeated fighters, and both had really good records. Opponent, like I looked at both of their records and compared them, and both of these guys met at the right time. I think they were both really top-notch Latin American fighters. And when you look at how Zellhuber came back, I think it was a good testament for his endurance in the fight. I mean, showed a good chin, and also it was able to display and get out of his whatever rut he started off in that first round, second and third round, and really, just turn up the heat.
Considering the kid is only 22 years old, and I will say this for the English-speaking and American fans of this show, he has a very bright future in the UFC because he speaks English very well. If you've seen the post-fight press conference from the Dana White Contender Series with Luke Thomas asking him some questions, he understood everything, he answered everything. So when you're crossing over from a different country into the American audience, that's always a big deal if you can speak English. You see it a lot with some of the fighters, even Russian fighters like Peter Yan and stuff like that, sometimes have a trouble understanding some of the questions. And it kind of translates a little bit off to having the American audience kind of supporting them sometimes. You saw, like when Rose Namajunas fought Weili Zhang, they were booing her even though she was the champ because they were fighting the American Rose. So when you have someone like a Brandon Moreno or somebody like that can speak English very well, it really translates when you come to a new country fighting. So I think he has a very bright future. He's very young. He's very exciting. He has those Muay Thai clinches. He throws those kicks. He can take you down with some ground and pound. From everything I've seen from this kid, he has such a bright future. What do you think his future is in the UFC, and do you think he's going to be a contender sooner than later?
I think that kid's got a lot to learn still. He is just raw talent with a lot of potential behind him. So I think
He's got a lot of size,
let's not get too ahead of ourselves. And and he's definitely growing still at only 20 years of age. He's just, man, he's really, really talented, man. So I think that this kid's going to be in the UFC for a long time. I think he's got the potential to be a superstar. He fights very similar to Yair Reyes, actually. So he's got that very, with that crescent kick that he keeps connecting that kick in a lot of his fights. But we'll have to see how he does on the ground. How he does against a wrestler, for instance, that's going to give him trouble. How is he? So there's a lot of different looks that I'm sure he hasn't seen yet, and he's definitely going to see that in the UFC. And we'll see how that pans out for him. But man, the most important part is that he's exciting to watch. He's a lot of fun to watch, and he always finds a win. I mean, this kid's got a lot of talent.
Yeah, I mean, the last couple of times you've probably seen him, he was having his first round stoppages. So it's kind of nice to even see him be tested going 3 rounds, going against a tough fighter like Almeida, because it kind of shows his grit, right? It shows like how tough he is. So it's definitely something to keep an eye out. We'll look forward to them announcing his first fight. I'm sure we'll talk about it here on the show when he does finally get that first UFC official fight outside of the Contender Series. I think they're probably aiming, at this point, they're starting to schedule December and January for the UFC. So I think that's probably the soonest you might see him, but we'll see. You never know with travel issues and visa issues and other things as well. So we'll see.
Yeah, one of the things he mentioned on his interview was that he's interested in come and train up here in the U.S., Las Vegas. He was actually thinking about going close to your neck of the woods up in Florida with in Miami and even possibly California. So it'll be definitely a good opportunity for him to see American wrestling, and avoiding those takedowns, avoiding that constant pace from American wrestlers. I think that would be a really good look for him. Also, if he goes to California, down up to AKA, he'll get that Dagestani wrestling style, which is completely different from the American wrestling. So I think, if he works on those things that we haven't seen or presume that he hasn't had a lot of looks at, I think that would be a good spot for him to go.
Yeah, down in Miami, South Florida, you got, of course, Sanford MMA, American Top Team. You come over to Tampa, where I am, you got Gracie South, which has like fighters like Billy Q and stuff like that, which are very similar fighters to him as far as like long, lanky. So that would be a great training partner right there. So there's all over Florida, all over California, as you know, in your backyard. Great training camps. He could also, if he wanted to, obviously Brandon Moreno and them's camp right there on the edge of Tijuana and California right there. So it's a lot of options for him if he's willing to keep traveling and getting better and better. That's like the best thing, because you're getting different training partners, different angles, getting different looks, getting different experiences. It just makes you a better fighter. So we've seen it in the past. You see it with even veterans. Like look at Rory McDonald and the way he kind of resurrected his career in PFL because he went down to Sanford MMA and got out of TriStar. It was because of the pandemic, but it still opened him up to all new different like people. And he's still doing this with his people back in TriStar, but now he has best of both worlds. So something. Yeah,
and one of the things I regret not doing in my career is going out there and I did travel. I remember I went to Jackson's for a week, and then I went up to the Grudge Center with Trevor Whitman, and I trained out there, and I absolutely had a blast out there training with those guys. But I didn't do it enough, and I wish I would have done it. Oh, dude! Not only is he like an incredible coach, but like he's like a motivator, man. He's so much fun to be around. He's a really great, and he took care of me when I was out there, man. He's super cool vato for sure.
Definitely, like you see what he's done with Usman. Like Usman, when him and Gilbert Burns were about to fight, they're in the same camp, so they split up a little bit for the camp. And he went out to train with Trevor Whitman, and he hasn't looked back because Trevor Whitman is just so fantastic. It turned his jab into a knockout punch. So I think the future for Zellhuber is going to be very bright as long as he keeps his nose to the ground and keeps working and keeps working. I don't see anything really standing in his way because he's just one of those very tall, very long fighters at that division. You see it like in Oliveira and people like that at lightweight. It helps a lot. And if he works on his jiu-jitsu a little bit more and mix that in with some of his wrestling and Muay Thai, he's going to be very, very good for a very long time, like you said.
Yeah,
We're
I
going
think
to
he's
switch
going to
over
be number
Go
one
ahead,
guy.
sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I think he's going to make it to the. He's going to be a big name in a couple of years in the UFC. I mean, right now he needs to just see those looks. He needs to get familiarize himself with what's out there. Get a couple more looks of different style of fighters and techniques. But his Muay Thai and his stand-up game and his distance and how he's able to measure that distance is what's going to set him apart.
And his grounding pound. His grounding pound's pretty good too. All right, we're going to switch gears a little bit, switch over to a little bit of a fighter profile. This is somebody Alex wanted to talk about. He's ranked the number one bantamweight in all of Mexico at this point. Talking about the problem child, Christian Quiñonez. He's had some ups and downs in his career, even though he's on a current 3-fight win streak. The last time he was in Combate, he had a loss. He got caught in a rear naked choke, which honestly, he was really winning that fight early. Like I was actually just watching this fight back, getting ready for this show. And he was actually winning that fight earlier, and then he just got put in a bad position with somebody that was just as good as him on the ground. But then he bounced back with UWC, your old stomping grounds, and he got a few wins under his belt. He's getting ready to step up to the next level. Funny enough, when I was doing the research for this show, I went to their page to see like any related like media and stuff on Christian Quiñonez, and there's a picture of you with a title belt sitting right there. So it's perfect, right? Tell us what you know about the problem child, and tell us why we need to look out for this kid.
Well, for one, he's related to the brother. He's the younger brother of Teco Quiñonez, who just he lost, I think, 2 fights in the UFC, and then just went into LFA, I think, and got a huge win out there, taking out the biggest because his brother's chasing the toughest fights, man. Kudos to Teco, but Christian is just the same. Honestly, I feel like the younger brother is got a lot more has a more aggressive style in his fighting, and he's a lot more active than Teco is. Teco's a little bit more accurate and a little bit more conservative in his approach to fighting, where Christian is a little bit more exciting to watch. I guess that's
he goes for it. He's a little younger, yeah.
Actor's view, that's probably the what's it called?
Youth.
I guess basically like just calling it that way. But he's really exciting to watch. He's gone out and fought some of the best guys out there, and actually has performed really well and has gotten better every single time. You mentioned the one time he got stuck in that rear naked choke. He was doing fantastic, man. He was crushing that fight, but he ended up getting caught. This is MMA.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a tale of 2 rounds, right? The first round against Victor, he was winning. The second round, all of a sudden, Madrigal got turned around on him, and then there was just it got in deep, and that was it. You play around in this game called MMA long enough, you're going to get caught.
You're going to get caught, exactly.
Especially when you're a younger fighter. He's 25 at this point, so I was like 24. Younger fighter, still kind of learning yourself, let alone your opponent. Things happen, and you learn. As long as you learn from those mistakes and you continue to grow, then the sky's the future. Like if this kid, he's definitely more of a wild child. He comes out with red hair or different colored hair. He's, I won't say the polar opposite of his brother, but he's definitely, like you said, a lot more adventurous, a lot more. He goes after it a little bit more. Where his brother's a little bit more patient, tries to like find his spots. This one, Christian, like he's just balls to the wall. Let's go.
Yeah, he's constantly putting a lot of Mexican pressure on you, man. So he definitely fights like a Mexican, man, every time he steps in.
And sometimes that pays off. Sometimes it doesn't. But it's fun to watch, and it's always great to see somebody like that. Now, I have heard that he's supposed to be on Dana White's Contender Series at some point. Yep. I don't see him on the schedule for the rest of this season, so we'll see if it gets pushed back. As with anything in MMA during this pandemic, subject to change at all times.
Yeah.
I know he had a fight, I think, scheduled for August that was canceled because he was supposed to go on Dana White's Contender Series.
Yeah.
So we'll see what's happening. Maybe he's like an alternate or a standby if somebody does get hurt.
Or he got injured. I don't know.
Or he got injured, yeah.
I'll shoot him a text message and see how he's doing. But yeah, I mean, last time I saw that when we were originally talking about doing the show last week, it was all systems go and everything. So, we'll see what happened there and kind of update you on that stuff.
But, I mean, like I said, the way the schedule changes left and right, he could be on tomorrow, next week. You don't even know. So
yeah, but the good thing is he's on the radar, man, and that's important. So, like I said, Christian Quiñonez has got a lot of talent. He's fought a lot around the world, really, without having, he's worked himself up to number one spot because he has traveled a lot. He's traveled all over the place without yet being in a big show. So this is going to be his big opportunity if he does get on this Dana White's Contender Series. We'll see how well that goes for him. And if he steps up and actually gets that big W, gets that contract, I think he might have a very exciting future as well.
Yeah, like you said, traveling the world. He's fought in Brave, another one of your backyards. He was 1-1 in that one. He fought in Combate, 1-1 in that one. So every time he steps up to the big level or bigger level, he's kind of had a little bit of a hiccup. So maybe you hope that he's matured, he's fixed those mistakes, and he keeps learning. Because as long as he keeps learning from his mistakes, he only gets better. And he's vicious, especially, he has good submission skills. He comes after you. He makes it exciting. So yeah, it's going to be fun to watch Christian Quiñonez, the problem child, El Nino Problema, develop and kind of come up to that next level in the UFC. Or maybe, who knows, maybe he pops up on PFL. Maybe he pops up on Bellator. One of the things that on my other show, Art of MMA, we always talk about, people always talk about UFC. There's plenty of other promotions.
Yeah.
Like people always seem to think like that's the only one to look at. Like he could very easily end up on one of the next seasons of PFL and go after $1 million. He could very easily end up in Bellator and go after one of that. And then I think Ariel Helwani even said there's another World Fight League coming out in 2023. So there's no shortage of options for some of these fighters to go and make some money, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm sure when you were a young pup, you kind of would have loved to have all the opportunities that are there for these fighters now. So
yeah, no, I agree 100%, man. Like I was fighting for like $50, and so it was fighting for the glory of it. But no,
there's a story for someday. That's going to be an episode right there.
The time Alex fought for $50. Now it's all hey, looking back and comparing that to today's world, man, you got to do some good stuff. You look at my boy Shorty Torres. He's been able to make a living because of of that kind of stuff, because he's able to really, he's fighting for Brave. He does a lot of stuff for Titan FC. He goes around, he's got sponsors.
He does a lot behind the scenes too.
Yeah. He does a lot of the stuff with social media and stuff. So, I mean, that social media wasn't even a thing, so when I was fighting, it kind of was, but it was more not the way it is now where fighters are monetizing it in such a way that that's very interesting. But people are making it happen, man.
Yeah, I mean, there's pluses and minuses to the social media. Obviously, the highlight reel, like it goes viral instantly, but at the same time, anytime something negative happens, then you're like fighting publicity. Whereas before, nobody knew really behind the scenes of a lot of these fighters. They just knew what they saw on TV, and then that was pretty much it, right?
Yeah.
First time I ever saw you fight, I didn't know the backstories of you and Francisco. I just knew you guys were going to war in that cage, and I was like, wow, look at this. So it's one of those things where it's kind of good to have a little bit of mystery, especially like in Dana's mind, because Dana still has that pro wrestling mindset of where he wants to surprise the fans. He wants to do this. And that's, that goes back to the beef with him and Ariel, because Ariel spoiled a surprise.
Yeah.
Because he was being a journalist. So there's pluses and minuses, but I think especially when it comes to Christian Quiñonez, I think the kid's got a bright future. And one last note on what Alex said, Jose Torres, we need to see that rematch, the Shorty versus Shorty. We need to see you and Shorty rock. We need to see y'all settle that draw.
Is that fight not going to happen or what? I thought it was going to happen.
Not right now, because Shorty Rock just announced he's fighting in Russia against a Russian opponent coming up in November.
That's right. He did mention that. Yeah, he's going to go to Russia. All right. We just got to set this fight up. They can't be dodging this fight. What's going on here?
I'm sure they'll finally get back around to it early next year. Who knows? Like you said, Jose Torres is doing a lot of stuff. Shorty Rock, this is the first time he's been back in the cage since that last Torres fight because of injuries and stuff. So, maybe it's to get his legs under him before he steps back in there with Torres and they can tear the house down again because those two, Shorty versus Shorty is if talk about international MMA. If you guys want to see something, go back and watch that last fight. That was, I don't know, I don't agree with the draw, but that's because I'm a little biased. Okay. I'm sure Alex is more biased towards Torres. I'm more biased towards Santella.
I can tell you, man. I know Shorty doesn't run. He'll fight anybody, anytime, any place, anywhere, man.
So, neither one of them do.
Yeah, exactly.
Neither one of them do.
I said Shorties, both of them.
Yeah, because we had that talk on Art of MMA back in the day. But go look back to back episodes of that. We're going to move on with this one. Just want to let you know a couple events coming up in the MMA world in Mexico real quick. Coming up this weekend, Budo Santo has a couple title fights down in Mexico City going on. They have their featherweight championship on the line with Linares versus Rosaldo. And then also the female flyweight championship, Nair Maya versus Pastrana. So check them out if you're in Mexico City or available somewhere to watch them streaming online. We support all MMA in Mexico, not just Luke's. We love Luke's Fight League, but not just Luke's. We support it all. And then, of course, Alex next week, he's going to be off going to Monterrey. They got Luke 17 fighting next week. Alex, you want to give people a quick preview? We'll, of course, break it down next week, but you want to give people a quick preview of that show?
Yeah, of course, man. Well, for one of my favorite Mexican fighters will be fighting in the co-main event. Macio will be fighting and defending. Well, not really defending, but he's coming back, I guess, after the loss against Diego Lopez. But he's really exciting, super exciting to watch. But one of the up-and-coming Latin American fighters is going to be taken out. It's going to be young versus old. Right, we got Francisco Patron, the young kid who looks like innocent, like the newspaper kid, the guy that delivers the newspapers.
8-0, undefeated. Francisco Patron,
undefeated. I mean, he doesn't even have a six-pack, man. He's like soft and he's just a gentle little kid, but he's a murderous rage inside the cage, and he's going to be taken on against Marco. I'm sorry,
Beltran,
help me out with the last. Marco what?
Beltran. Yeah.
I wanted to say Beltran, but like the referee. But Marco Beltran he's our senior guy, ex-UFC guy. He's been murdering these young guys. I mean, he just put he's been just tearing up the scene since he got out of the UFC. And Marco Beltran will be basically putting up against the test against a very young up and coming athlete in Francisco Patron, babyface. So that's gonna be really, really fun to watch. I don't see Francisco Patron winning this fight, but I've said that every single one of his fights that I've seen him. I've sit on cage and I was like, there's no way this kid's going to win. And he tears up the house down. And I have this same notion going into this Marco Beltran fight. And I don't know. I don't feel comfortable betting on this fight.
Well, we'll break that down next week a little bit more, but I will say I do feel bad for Beltran a little bit because it's easy to say now, looking back at the opponents that he faced in the UFC, but he lost to Joe Soto, who was at one time a title contender. Yep. He lost to Davison Figueiredo, who was a champion. And then Matt Schnell, who's always super tough in that cage.
Yeah.
So that's not an easy 3 fights to have in your UFC run.
Nope.
And then he had a hiccup when he came back and fought against Diego Lopez. But other than that, he's been destroying everybody. So you might not be wrong, but we'll break that down next week. Before we get out of here, Alex, we didn't get a story time last episode, man. You owe us a story time.
And I do apologize, Mike, because you're right. I've owed you one, and I had like so many in my head. I was like, I gotta just think about them. But since this is basically a podcast of crossing borders, so I'll give you a really funny one of crossing borders. So I had a buddy of mine who was in the Navy, and he showed me a couple of his fights of him fighting in the barracks. He's knocking kids out, and I'm like, wow, it's impressive. They're just backyard brawls with the other sailors and stuff. And I thought, wow, this is cool. This is awesome. He's like, Alex, can you give me a fight in Tijuana so we can go out there and I can get a fight in? Because I've always wanted to fight there. I was like, oh man, that sounds like a great like a great adventure. We'll go down there. Of course, I know all the guys down in Tijuana. And so I hit them up and they're like, yeah, I can get you guys a fight. But, when I call in a promoter in Tijuana and I said I got a fighter, they're like, okay, well, Alex is calling me. He's got some top guy. So they're going to bring some top young guy over to match him up. And which is expected, right? But I didn't know anything about this kid, right? By the way, we called him Chesler the Molester.
Oh my God. That's not an appealing name there, Alex.
It's not, but it's hilarious. It just rhymes. That's the only thing. So we told them, hey, Chess, let's get you out there. Let's So I'm like, sure, let's book you a fight. You want to fight? I'll get you a fight. All right. But I started talking to him, and then I'm starting to realize that this kid really doesn't know what he's talking about too much about like fighting. So I always have a test, and the test is if you can get through my brother, then I'll let you fight over there. So I'll let you fight in Tijuana. My brother, by the way, he is like a street fighter, man. My brother Eric can throw down. He knows a couple of moves. He knows how to throw a right hand. He's just a thick fighter. He would have been great at MMA, man. Unfortunately,
is he your older brother or younger brother?
Older brother. He ended up pursuing BMX. So now he does BMX stunt shows all over. So he's living with the Extremo name as well. So he does a lot of BMX stuff. But he's the one that I say, okay, if you can get to my brother or hang with him, then I'll allow you to go and fight with these Mexican boxers. So we go out there and I invite him to my backyard. And so Chesler gets in with my brother. My brother just starts whooping his ass, man. I'm like, oh gosh, it was just terrible, man. It was just back and forth. And my brother Eric, but he can throw down too. He's tough to deal with, but he's never really done a lot of like training officially or fought pro or anything like that. But I ended up grabbing Chesler and going, hey man, I'm sorry, we're not gonna go to Tijuana and get you killed out there, man.
Man, I was hoping there would be a happy ending to that in this story.
No, man, I ended up canceling that thing real quick. But I wish we would have gone down.
I was hoping you would throw him in a backyard like bar somewhere in Tijuana, one of the mass markets somewhere in there with a little bit of ring in there somewhere.
Yeah. So I'll give you, I'll wrap it up with another one. Well, my coach, when I had first started fighting, Manolo was like, hey, Alex, we got some fights this week. And I had just started, man, amateur fights. And he's like, Alex, why don't you come join us? Let's go. And we're going to do some amateur MMA fights. And this was going to be my first one. I'm thinking, yeah, finally, I've been training for this. Let's go out and do this. And we traveled to this part on the east side of Tijuana. It's just, I don't know that area very well, but it's just on the far east side. And it's like in this middle of nowhere, basically like bar. So we go in there, we show up, and then my coach goes, hey, Alex, I got it looks like nobody's got shin pads. All right. So we're not going to wear shin pads. It was going to be an amateur MMA pads. No shin pads, and we all kind of looked around because I was there with YL Watson, also a former UFC fighter. So we're looking around like, yeah, okay, no shin pads, yeah, no shin pads. All right, no shin pads. All right, okay. We keep warming up. We're hitting the pads, and then Manolo comes back. Hey, Alex. So a lot of the fighters don't have gloves.
Oh shit! So you're fighting bare knuckle?
No gloves. Is that okay? And we're all like, oh shit! But we came all this way. What am I gonna say? No? And I'm like, all right, okay, fine. No bare. Okay, fine. We'll do it. No bare. Yeah, bare knuckles. All right, no gloves. All right, no gloves. And they're like, hey, by the way, Alex, they come back 10 minutes later. Elbows are okay. I'm like, yeah, I guess elbows are all right. Yeah, okay, fine. Let's do it. It ended up turning into a freaking street fight, man. Oh man. So
did you win?
Huh?
Did you win?
Yeah. So. Man, I got so lucky, man. I ended up getting this kid from Louisiana. I don't know how it worked out, but this kid from Louisiana was in Tijuana for some reason, probably like Chesler the Molester, but showed up and so he was swole too, man. He was buff. So we went at it. And luckily for me, he was a wrestler. So he actually took me down. I got the scramble and I got the rear naked choke, and it's actually on YouTube. Check it out. It was a bare knuckles, open palm strikes to the face, but
you have to send me that link.
Closed knuckles to the body, man. And that was like my first amateur experience in Tijuana. So there you go. We officially crossed the border, Mike.
There you go. Well, you're gonna have to send me that link.
Okay. Yeah.
On that note, speaking of Extremo, make sure you check out Alex's collection on Fighters First. Support the show. Support Alex Soto. On top of that, we will be back next week. He'll be traveling, so looks like he might even be in the hotel or at the airport. We'll figure it out. We'll get you that episode right before Luke 17, of course, with Patron facing in Marco in the championship fight. We'll talk about all that. We'll break it all down, get Alex's thoughts on the fight card for the next night, because it will be the night after we talk. So we'll get all that to you. Alex, any last words?
Hey, let's put some bets in, man. Who wants in? Let's see it. Put your money where your mouth is.
There you go. Links to Alex's social media is below, so make sure you hit him up. Just don't shake him down in Mexico, man. I need him back next week. Like, come on now. Leave him alone. Leave him alone.
I'll get shake down here in San Diego, man.
You're probably right. You probably got more. I'm not even going to go there. We're going to leave that alone. Alex is going to have to pull up back his Army days and defend himself.
Yeah.
Which is another funny twist to the whole Navy friend that Alex is an Army guy. But
yeah, there's no Army bases in San Diego.
Yeah, can't wait to see you during Army Navy game. See you two going at it. That said, ladies and gentlemen, this is Crossing Borders. We will be back next week talking about Luke 17 and probably profiling a couple more new fighters and talking about all that. Check out the Extreme Collection on Fighters First. Of course, this show brought to you by Fighters First. So check out the network, check out the shop. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.